In this video, I'll be talking lenses. So the lenses I have today are for the Sony E-mount and the Canon DSLR mount. And even though the lenses I currently own are for the Sony and Canon cameras, these lenses are available for whatever brand camera you own. So feel free to research and find the equivalent lens for your camera brand. So for this list, I'll only be going over 3 lenses. These 3 lenses are some of the most budget-friendly lenses, but they're still super awesome. And the lens at the end of this list is definitely going to shock you, but stay tuned for that. So the first lens I would recommend to kick this list off with is a 24mm prime lens. I got the 24mm f1.8 Veltrox full frame Sony E-mount lens. Now this is personally one of my favorite lenses of all time. I was going to purchase the G Master. I did some research and I realized, this lens might be good enough. Let's give it a try. It's a lot more affordable than the Sony G Master, which is yeah. I bought the lens, and after using it over time, I realized I kind of fell in love with it. And if you're not shooting full frame, do not worry. I do have an equivalent lens for the APSC cameras. Now, the one I have for you right here is from TT Artisan. So this is the TT Artisan 17mm f1.4. Now I say 17mm because of the crop factor. Once you multiply it, it's roughly a 24mm full frame equivalent. It has this nice aperture ring, which is nice and clicky. If you're a photographer, you'll love it. If you're a videographer, meh. But I personally love the sound. The focus ring is really smooth. It's really boy. The focusing ring on this lens is super smooth, and it has a long throw. It's not that long, but it's what I would say is perfect for me. And on the topic of the focusing ring, I must also mention the major con to this lens right here. The specific model is a manual focus only lens. So if you're a fully autofocus shooter, this might not be the lens for you, but I'll leave some recommendation for lenses with autofocus, which are 24mm equivalent full frame lenses, such as the Sigma 16mm. I do not mind shooting with manual focus. I actually prefer shooting with manual focus. Majority of the times when I'm shooting, especially portraiture, I love manual focusing. This lens is actually pretty sharp if you're gonna get it. Center sharpness is amazing. Corner sharpness, not so great. It's usable, but meh. But you can also stop the lens down to fix the corners and get rid of the vignette, which is also something you can fix in post. This lens does have some distortion, as does the full frame equivalent. They both suffer from a bit of vignetting, but it's not that much. So let's see what a 24mm full frame or 16 or 17mm APS-C lens is truly capable of. These lenses are pretty affordable. The full frame one is more expensive, but yeah. For the Veltrox, I usually keep a polarizing filter on the lens just because I shoot automotive with it from time to time, and also just to get that deep green, that deep foliage. It cuts down the reflection on greens, the foliage in your environment, hence making it look a bit deeper and foresty. I love that look for my personal work, and that's why I usually have a polarizing filter on my lens right here. The second lens on this list is a lens that's gonna come as no surprise to no one, and you're probably a bit upset that it's on the list, but hear me out. 50mm prime lenses. And hear me out. I'm not recommending 50mm prime lenses on APS-C size sensors. No. I am recommending 50mm lenses for full frame cameras. The look you get from a 50mm lens on a full frame camera is absolutely amazing. Now, if you're an APS-C shooter, I would recommend a 30mm or a 35mm lens. So you could try the Sigma 30mm f1.4, which is a lens I own and I love. It's amazing. Also, there's a lot of cheap manual focus options. This is the focal range which you can find for the cheapest, which gives you some of the coolest results. You're gonna get some nice shallow depth of field with 50mm lenses, and they typically resell for a lower price than let's just say the 24mm lenses. Amazing lens. I love me a 50mm. I'm now a believer. I usually hate 50mm, but that's because I only shot an APS-C for the vast majority of my life and I didn't understand the hype. But then I realized the 50mm hype is really a full frame hype. So if you're shooting APS-C, your 50mm is now more of a 85mm equivalent, which is too tight for most scenarios. But on full frame, it's just wide enough to give you some more context, but telephoto enough to give you some separation from your background. 50mm lenses, go get them. The final lens on this list, again, this is going to be a surprise to most of you, but the lens I'm going to recommend right now is the kit lens. It's also the lens that's being used to film this video right now. So the footage you're seeing right now is being filmed on the kit lens for Sony APS-C cameras, which is the 16 to 50mm 3.5 to 5.6. This here is the Canon kit lens, which is the 18 to 55, and I love this lens. Well, love is a strong word. I make use of this lens. I do recommend eventually upgrading from kit lenses, but kit lenses can be a really powerful tool in the hands of a true photographer. This was shot on a Rebel SL2 camera using this very same lens. The 18 to 55 kit lens deliver amazing results in certain conditions. I've shot so many images using a kit lens, which I've been pleased with. So don't write off the kit lens. It definitely is a lens I would recommend. And if you're using a kit lens right now, don't feel discouraged that you don't have the latest and the greatest. I definitely would say the kit lens is good enough for most scenarios. And also the kit lens is a lens that allows you to figure out what you like in a focal length. For me, I realized when I was shooting with a kit lens, I primarily stuck to the wider end of the lens, which is 18 here, 16 there. And for that reason is how I realized I needed to get a full frame equivalent of 24mm, because I've had enough practice using a kit lens at the wider end. Now the kit lens isn't the best lens for low light. It's not the best lens for separation, but you can get some level of separation with a kit lens. These lenses are all very affordable lenses. Some a bit more pricey than the other, but a 50mm lens is going to be one of the most affordable things you can get. And I'm not saying do not get a 50mm if you're shooting on APS-C camera. Just know that it's going to be a bit tighter than what a true 50mm is. There's always the option to get a 35mm lens on your APS-C camera, and it's going to give you something more true to life of what a full frame 50mm actually looks like. That has been my recommendations for super cheap, super affordable, super powerful lenses. So try them out, and I'll see you in the next video. A bientôt.